Уважаеми колеги, скъпи гости, много ми е приятно да приветствам тези, които са с нас за първи път, както и тези, които за пореден път посещават лекция от цикъла ВСЕКИ втори вторник. Днес имаме изключителното удоволствие да посрещнем професор Ахим Рабус от Института по славистика в Фрайбургски университет в Германия. Той е тук по покана на професор Лора Тасева от Института за балканистика с Център по тракология при Българската академия на науките в изпълнение на проекта Словното богатство на учителното Евангелие на Константин Преславски, старобългарско-гръцки, гръцко-старобългарски речници индекси, финансиран от Фонд научни изследвания. Благодарим още веднъж на професор Рабус. Той току-що пристигна след сериозно закъснение на неговия полет и му благодарим, че е тук при нас и се включи в лекцията. Професор Рабус е утвърден германски палеославист и директор на Института по славистика в Фрайбургски университет в Германия. Автор е на 2 монографии на повече от 60 статии. Освен филологическата медиавистика, интересите му обхващат социолингвистика, корпусна лингвистика и дигитална хуманитаристика, като към момента се е насочил към възможностите за компютърно разчитане на стари славянски ръкописни източници, пълно морфологично тегиране на средновековни славянски текстове и специфични лингвистични корпуси. Чрез серия от проекти в областта на дигиталната палеославистика, под негово ръководство Фрайбург се превръща в един от най-важните центрове на дигиталната палеославистика. Професор Рабус е председател на Комисията за компютърна обработка на славянски ръкописи и старопечатни книги към Международния комитет на славистите. Сега ще ни представи своята лекция на тема Introduction to Computer Supported Handwritten Text Recognition Using Transcribus, след което ще имате възможност да зададете въпроси и да коментирате. След лекцията записът ще бъде качен в YouTube канала на Института за балканистика с Център по тракология при Българската академия на науките, както и на сайта на проекта Словното богатство на учителното Евангелие на Константин Преславски. Без да отнемам повече от времето, I would like to give the floor to Professor Rabus.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. Thank you very much for your invitation. Welcome to our lecture. I assume you can hear me. If not, please. Okay, very good. All right, so today we are going to talk about handwritten text recognition. Handwritten text recognition, namely using the application called Transcribus. Transcribus uses very advanced technology, artificial intelligence, to recognize handwritten text. And this technology is also suitable for complex printings. For instance, early Slavic printings or Church Slavonic printed editions or things like that. And this technology is called HTR, which stands for Handwritten Text Recognition, which is the more advanced version of the well-known OCR, optical character recognition. We all know that it's not hard to conduct OCR with a modern printed text in, say, Bulgarian or English or things like that. We can do this with our cell phones with a very low error rate. But if we have handwritten text and if we have, say, medieval texts, it gets way more complicated. And that's the reason we need artificial intelligence to deal with that kind of text and sources. And the interesting thing is that this technology takes into account not only the individual letters, the individual glyphs, but also the surrounding letters and also whole words or even whole lines, because it's a line-based, essentially it's a line-based approach. HDR, Transkribus is not the only HDR application that is available, but in my opinion is the most advanced and it's the most user-friendly one, which is especially important for us philologists or historians or digital humanists, because we are not IT scientists. We struggle with programming. We like to click buttons and things like that, and that's the reason I prefer Transkribus to conduct that task. In order to transcribe sources, you need to have so-called models, and these models need to be trained. And in order to do that, you need, let's stay on that slide for a moment. In order to do that, you need many high-quality digital images and corresponding line-by-line corresponding transcriptions. And then you can start training a model that corresponds to your sources, right? And we have done that. We have done that a lot. So there are many models available for Paleoslavistics, and I will show them to you today. So you as the users, as the potential users, you do not need to train new models from scratch because they're already available. You can use them for free online and in the expert client that I'm going to show you in a minute. So we have a couple of models for Cyrillic Ustav and Pohu Ustav, also for Glagolitic script, and some so-called private models for East Slavic Skorapis, and also some models for early printings and for modern printings, Church Slavonic printings. In my opinion, Transkribus is a game changer because it allows for the first time to efficiently conduct mass digitization of manuscripts and also of printed sources. And this can boost our field, in my opinion. All right, so I'm trying to show you the application. Wait a minute. Here we go. This is a Transkribus expert client, and this is one manuscript from the Bulgarian National Library. And I'm gonna try to transcribe this manuscript. I have to click here on Tools. Then I have to select an appropriate model. And the model that might work best is the so-called combined full and an abbreviation. This is a large model for Church Slavonic, and we will see what happens. Okay, so you select the appropriate model, then you click OK, then you confirm, and then you wait 30 seconds, or depending on server load, maybe even a bit longer, but you do not need to stay and watch the screen. You can do something else in the meantime. Okay, here we go. So we reload the current page, and then we see the transcription, and we see there's an error with the titlo here is not correct, but the rest doesn't look too bad. Od svojich rab is pretty good. Also, this superscript letter has been recognized correctly. And well, you can see it yourself. I think this is really not too bad. You see it inserted word breaks. So there are spaces between the words that have been inserted, and also these hyphens, zwei, right? So this is correct word separation and hyphenation in this case, and that's what transcribers can do for Church Slavonic texts. I'm going to continue with my presentation and going to show you a couple of the models we have trained. You've seen that in principle for Polu stuff, quality is pretty good. This is the Russian and East Slavic manuscript. And we see, of course, there are a couple of errors, especially with superscript letters. But overall quality is all right, I guess. The same holds for Gustav. Maybe I just put this in another direction. And we see the same problem that transcribers has problems with the superscript letters and also with titlo and other small things. But the regular letters can be transcribed with high quality. We have also new public models. We trained both models for both Ustav and Polustav. They're publicly available. And a colleague from Serbia, Vladimir Polomac, he trained a model for early South Slavic, early Serbian printings, 15th century printings. And the quality is really good. And this comes as no surprise, because well, printing is more regular than handwriting, and so it's easier to get a low error rate. And you see this is really outstanding, the quality of this transcription. Here we tried something. This is a private model. Private means you have to ask me before you use it. Public means you, as a regular user of transcribers, you can use it and no one will take notice. Here we tried to train so-called smart models. These are models with some philological intelligence. For instance, we taught our model to expand abbreviations. You see the first line here. The first line, we have expanded abbreviations here and also here. And well, here with the figures, something has changed as well. And this is, let's say, the philologically faithful model. And this is the more popular model for a more reader-friendly transcription. You also see modernized orthography. This is what transcribers is able to learn. And you, yeah, such models also exist. We continue with Scorapis here, and you see the error rate goes up. There are more errors, but the script is considerably more complex as well. So well, it's kind of logical to have more errors in that kind of sources. Here are some other examples. And this is a model from for early printings, Church Slavonic early printings, trained by colleagues from the State Library in Berlin, Vladimir Neumann. And we see, of course, there are a very low amount of errors. Almost everything is correct. Sometimes accents are missing, but the rest is pretty good. And now I would like to talk about our project, the Uchitelno Evangelia. And we had this fine printed edition by our late colleague Maria Tichova, and we tried to redigitize this edition because we couldn't use the Word files due to legacy fonts, and we ran into many problems with respect to trying to make use of this data. So Laura resolved that the best way would be to use Transcribus to scan the text and to correct the errors. And that's what we did in the very beginning of our collaboration in the project. I think it was even before the pandemic. And we see that there are a couple of errors. So the quality is okay, in my opinion, but it's not ideal for a relatively easy source, right? So what's the reason for that? The reason for that is that we didn't have time to tailor our model towards this specific source. We took a general model, a generic model, and this led to numerous errors here that had to be corrected in post-processing afterwards. We see also with Titlo and with these signs, we ran into errors. The rest is okay. If we have a look at another source, the Radomir Psalter project together with Ekaterina Likova, we see that we can improve recognition quality for editions, for printed editions. As you can see here, what did we do? We used our general model that we also used for the Uchitelno Evangelie to create the first pre-transcription of a couple of pages. I think we used 20 or so pages, and there was more or less the same amount of errors like in the Uchitelno Evangelie. But then Ekaterina corrected everything manually, and through the data, I retrained the model. So I used the corrected data to tailor a new model towards this specific source. And this resulted in a lower error rate and in a higher recognition quality. So we see Titlo is no problem anymore, but still, well, some of the superscript characters are still problematic for Transcribus in this case. But we can do that, and it was quite efficient. So it took a couple of hours of manual work, and then we retrained, and then the rest of the source could be transcribed with a higher accuracy and a better quality. This is also an interesting model for Dameschini editions trained by our colleagues in Zurich. This is a modern printed edition, and for some reason, they resolved to have Transcribus transcribe it into Latin script and not into Cyrillic, because they intended to do some, corpus linguistic or digital humanities stuff with it afterwards. All right, so we have this interesting model, which is for bilingual Romanian and Slavic Cyrillic. And this is interesting because I cannot use my general models for Slavic Cyrillic to transcribe that particular source, because as I mentioned in the beginning, Transcribus acquires some sort of linguistic intelligence. So Transcribus has an understanding of letter frequencies in a particular language or letter combinations and things like that. And if we use our Slavic model for non-Slavic text written in Cyrillic, we will get very bad results, because this is a different language, right? And this means that Transcribus won't perform very well. Because of that, we trained a bilingual model together with our colleague Constanza Burlacu from Oxford. Also for early printings from the Romanian area. All right, so this I tried to present to you a couple of models, Transcribus models, and to show you the capabilities of this piece of software. And in my opinion, Transcribus is truly a game changer because it can speed up our work considerably, and efficient mass digitization is possible for the first time. And I would like to invite you to join forces and to recycle already existing transcriptions, to train new models, and to make Transcribus even better and even more versatile for the benefit of all of us. Well, thank you very much.
Simple question. Does one need any training, special training, to try to teach model? Or for example, I have to start with the regular and already made models, and how can I contribute to
yes,
with a list of the errors, for example? I'm trying to figure out how can I start and how can I contribute at the same time.
yes, very good question. How can you start training models? What will be helpful to improve Transcribus? And I'm going to show you the Transcribus application once again, because it's easier to show it within the application. To train a model means you have many digital images with high quality, and you have line by line corresponding transcriptions. And then you go ahead, you click, I would like to train a new model over there. Then you select your sources, maybe this. You put 90% of the sources into a training set, this is here. And then you put 10% into the so-called validation set, that's over there. And then you name the model, you describe the model, you select the language, you do some stuff here, which is advanced, and then you hit the training button, and then the training will start. And how does that work? How does training of an artificial intelligence work? This is an instance of so-called supervised learning. Supervised learning means that the AI, the artificial intelligence, knows what's correct. So in your training data, you as a philologist, you made sure that there are no errors, right? So you have these corresponding transcriptions, and then the machine learns that something that looks a specific way on the image corresponds to a specific sign on the computer. And it has a look at all the pages and all the lines and all the word tokens in the training data, and tries to learn and tries to guess what is correct. And afterwards, it compares it with the correct training data, with the correct input, and figures out that there are many errors still there. So it trains again, many epochs, again and again. And I'm going to show you how a training curve looks like. For instance, no, that's not a good example. Let's take this. You see this hyperbolic shape here, and this means you have the error rate on the y-axis here, and you have these so-called epochs. Epochs means the machine reads through the whole of the text, and then it tries to rewrite it, and it tries to correct the errors. And there are many tutorials online, and also video tutorials. It's really not that hard. In the beginning, we all struggle, of course, but it's not that hard. So maybe it works. Nevertheless, okay, it's finished. Not finished. But in the beginning, error rate goes down very fast, and in the end, we don't gain much. But that's a typical way of training an AI. So you need training data. What you don't need is rules or a list of errors or things like that. Any further questions? And please feel free to ask in slow Bulgarian. I will try to answer in English.
Hello, actually, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Also, because probably most of the other colleagues don't know me. My name is Martin, and actually I'm giving a hand with some technical work on the Учително Евангелие project. I work at the University of Milan. Being also, let's say, a technical person, I will try to ask a question which might be a bit technical, but I think it's very practical and very hands-on. So can you give us a bit of an idea of how many pages of text need to be transcribed for a training set to give a good quality? So for example, if you could explain a bit more the test that you did with Dr. Dikova, how many pages? I think you mentioned about 20 pages, but did you start a new model, or did you do something to adjust the pre-existing model? And if so, is it something that you could show us how it's done?
Yes, this is an excellent question because this is really important, the practical relevance. How many pages do you need to start training your own model? And in the transcribers people, they calculate in word tokens. So they count words. And if you have less than 1,000 word tokens, no matter how many pages, you don't need to start. It's not enough. If you have 3,000 or 5,000, it would make sense to start a first model. Our models, I can show it to you, have considerably more tokens as training data. If we go to view models, and then we have a look at Church, Slavonic, and we see this is one of the generic models for Pulu stuff with 170,000 word tokens, and this is the other one with almost 400,000 word tokens. That's a lot. How did we get there? We recycled data. We asked our colleagues, could you please send us your Word files with your edition, your corpus files and things like that, and then we entered it. And that makes sense because these models are quite versatile. So in my opinion, this is an important approach to have a good model in the end. And with Ekaterina, we started with this generic model for, let's say, 70,000 word tokens for printed text, if I remember correctly, and then we added just a couple of word tokens, more than thousands to be sure, but that was enough for that kind of source to tailor the model towards the specific source. So we had the linguistic intelligence from the large part of the model, and the paleographic characteristics from the booster, from the couple of additional pages. And that's a reasonable workflow, in my opinion.
Sorry, but why would you indicate what you showed us before, how you provide the training and validation sets? Is that the same screen where you indicate the base model and the booster model?
Well, actually, you can use a base model in Transcribus, but I just I used the all of the training data of the previous model and added the Ekaterina's pages, right? So I trained a new model, a new improved, a new more specialized and more versatile model. Yes.
Thank you.
That's what we did. Any further questions? Yes, please. Right, thank you. So question was, what about Greek manuscripts? We don't work with Greek manuscripts. So my team did not train any models for Greek. However, I know that models have been trained successfully. For instance, in Tübingen, but these are late, not medieval, but later Greek models. But they work pretty well, and we can have a look. Maybe there are also public models available for Greek. I don't know. Okay, so these are our colleagues from Heidelberg who worked with printed text, Slavic, Latin, and Greek, and they trained models for that kind of source. But this is not medieval Greek handwritten text. Noskemos is also printed text, so there are no publicly available models for medieval Greek right now. But I can ask our colleagues from Tübingen to get in touch with you. You also had a question.
Well, if I start with just to use the available model, and if I send you my results, would it be of any help?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, it would definitely make sense if you sent me all you got.
Without bothering you to already set my own number. I'll see what could be done. And another question was, if I start recognizing modern Bulgarian manuscript written with old series letters, what will happen? Because the colleagues with the Moskini used printed editions with modern Cyrillic glyphs. So that's another question. But it's more like the Romanian stuff with Cyrillic or Slavonic letters in Romanian language. So is it possible to use the already made model, so we train it with another linguistic database.
Yes. Yes, it would be better to train a new model because, as I mentioned before, Transkribus acquires some linguistic knowledge. If you use, say, a model for Latin script trained on German data, on Dutch or on French, you would get very bad results. So that wouldn't work at all. And I didn't quite get which are the sources you are interested in.
Well, I mean that the 17th century, it's pretty good handwritten examples, and it's easy to one of your examples from this age and area. But the question is that we have type of sources. The classical ancient Slavonic text and modern Bulgarian text written without Cyrillic script. So that would be about the same scribes, literally.
But it might be possible to apply the booster approach, to use one of the large generic models for a first transcription, and you would get a lot of errors, and among others, you would get hypercorrect errors. The model would try to Slavonicize the language because it has learned, it has acquired some knowledge. Yeah, but maybe to de-Balkanize the language, right? And that would be very interesting to see. And then you can correct, and then you have 20 correct pages, and we can use these pages to tailor the model towards your sources, and we'll see what happens. It's no problem for Transkribus to work with multilingual data, and with also with biscriptal data. There are models with Latin script, Cyrillic script, and Greek script in one model. Sure.
We have some models on German manuscripts from newer time. Please demonstrate or if you have printed and
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there are many Latin models available, trained by colleagues from different universities. And if we have a look at models, view the models, and we enter Latin, and we will get in language and Latin script, of course. So let's choose Latin language over here, and we see the largest model is with charter script, but in this charter script are predominantly German charters. I can show it to you if you're interested. Okay, and we show the validation set. This might take a while. Okay, that kind of source can be transcribed using Transkribus. Here we go. And pure Latin, we tried that model. So, okay, this is legible, and okay, it doesn't work. We'll have to wait. Okay, so but that's very beautiful. Very beautifully written. Which type of sources specifically are you interested in? Generally. Okay. We also have these beautiful cursive models. Charter script, book script, and also these models for modern times. That's a pretty large model with almost 500,000 word tokens. And it looks like that. So this is modern writing, right? And you see here, CER stands for character error rate. This is important. This means that 8 out of 100 letters will be recognized incorrectly, theoretically, using that model. We see if we have complex sources, of course, the quality will be worse. But if we have easier sources, the quality can be very good. So printing in different languages with less than 2% error rate. All right, would you like me to show you Glagolitic, or aren't you interested in Glagolitic? Okay, so we have also models for Glagolitic. And I can show you the models we have trained. Okay, and we sort it by the number of word tokens. And we have a look at the sources, here the validation set. Okay. And we see that, well, it looks like a South Slavic language, right? So that's not too bad. And we also have, of course, more medieval sources. Wait a minute. For instance, these are early printings, but these are handwritten text over there. And we have to wait. Okay. So, and here's also a smart capability of the model. We have Glagoliuchu, and everything that is written in these parentheses has been added by the model. We have titlo over here, we have g, we have l, and then this has been learned by the model that if we have a combination of g, ligature, l, and titlo, it should add that. This is pretty impressive in my opinion, because my master students, well, maybe the master students are able to do that, but on that level, it might get complicated with that. Okay, so any further questions, maybe on Zoom?
I have two very short questions. The first one concerns the quality of the pictures that we can use. And the other question is how we proceed when we have a manuscript which is written in 2 columns on each page. I see that it is not a problem.
No, that's not a problem. So we have that red and black is often the case, and usually transcribers copes well with that. Regarding the quality of the images, you do not need perfect quality. There's an interesting tool, the so-called scan tent, which is a little tent that you can buy, and then you use your smartphone and you put it up there, and you have an app, and just turn the pages and the app will take pictures of your source and automatically upload it to your Transcribus collection. And so typical smartphone quality will be enough. If you send your pages or your images via messengers, they will be compressed, and that's not a good idea. So you might want to have at least 5 megapixels. But you do not need professional scanners. Smartphone quality is sufficient. No more questions? Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the lecture. I really enjoyed it. You mentioned your students, and I was wondering how students respond to using software. Can you use this software with your students, or do you use it primarily for research purposes? And if not, can you have any thoughts of how this can be, how this type of resource can be opened up again to students?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, I use it all the time with my students because I like digital humanities, and I like the new research perspectives that can be opened up using digital humanities. There's also the possibility to have your manuscript transcribed using Transcribus with errors, of course, but you can use a search functionality within Transcribus to find even incorrectly transcribed word tokens. So we get, there might be an opportunity to have a corpus with many manuscripts, all transcribed automatically, and you can search through manuscripts. And this is, well, nothing shorter than paradise for philologists, right? Yeah, sure. That's especially the younger generation, they digital natives, and they use their smartphones all the time. And so please install this app and take photos of the manuscript. That's what I do during teaching, right? Or not.
We all know that the readings that are made for whatever they got combined, this is the way it's not such, this is another. Now, if I'm correctly, propose is your letter, and now, once you visualize that, over the way of life and writing, is really the right or not? So, the question to what extent that's the job of the person. It's difficult for a decision has to be made. I suspect that there is a tendency to refuse to receive that do more or less accept it, or even for this. Something that you do not notice.
Yes, that might well be the case, definitely. But who says that I am the one who's supposed to do that? I do.
Transcribus without Transcribus. There will be mistakes.
No, you're definitely right. This is a very good and it's a philosophical question. Who is in charge? Man or the machine, right? And of course, we are tempted to accept what Transcribus proposes. And sometimes Transcribus proposes hypercorrect forms, which is really interesting to see. We have many East Slavic manuscripts, and in these manuscripts we have Roženje all the time, but Transcribus keeps writing Roženje with the superscript D all the time, because that's what is correct Church Slavonic, right? I think in the digital age, after the quantitative turn, we might accept that there is an alternative way to conduct science and to conduct what we do. And this is not striving for absolute perfection, but have orders of magnitude more data available with a little bit of noise, and not just one manuscript where I spent the last 10 years of my research career transcribing, editing, and analyzing, but way more. But we need to, in my opinion, we need to accept that there are people who choose that way to conduct science. We can talk about that later, because that's a crucial point, definitely. All right. No more questions here live, no more questions on Zoom. All right. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Rabus, for this very interesting and useful lecture. I hope you will come again to Sofia for another one. Колеги, благодаря ви. Приятна вечер и се надяваме, че утре записа вече ще бъде качен онлайн, така че ще може да го ползвате и да го изпращате на колеги познати, които биха имали интерес към лекцията. Благодаря ви, приятна вечер.